today I'm going to be talking about from Headball 1 to Headball 2, how it became a multi-million-dollar game. So before I get into the details, let me just walk you through about the content of the presentation. So I'm going to be talking about a little bit about myself and the Headball as a game concept, and then how we transitioned from Headball 1 to Headball 2 to achieve our goals. So starting from myself, I worked at Electronic Arts, Zynga, Perfect World, Tilting Point, in those companies as lead product manager and game director. And then finally and currently I'm working at Masomo as VP of product. And regarding Masomo, it is founded in 2015. It is based in Izmir, Turkey. And then we have around like more than 80 employees. It's a very young studio. And then Masomo got acquired by Miniclip in March 2019. And we are doing all of our development and production in-house. And Masomo is a very profitable company so far. So, regarding Headball 2 as a game concept, so Headball 2 is actually a real-time multiplayer mobile game where you play a soccer game. Within 90 seconds, you try to win against your opponent. You have a lot of characters that you can choose from. Currently, we have more than 100 characters in the game that you can unlock and choose from to win against your opponents. And on top of those characters, you can also use superpowers within the game to gain advantage against your opponents. So our journey actually started with Headball 1. And with Headball 2, actually, we released the game in 2015. And then we had some achievements. And those achievements were actually, we had a total player base of 40 million players. And mostly the organic growth was actually like 70% of the installs were coming from organic installs. We had pretty decent daily active users of 1 million on average. And then we also had a pretty good day 1 and day 7 retention thanks to our addictive game mechanic. But on top of all these successful metrics, we had a very low LTV, which actually resulted in a difficulty to grow the game through paid UA. And then with Headball 2, we wanted to achieve the same ongoing success stories. But on top of that, we wanted to achieve a higher LTV when compared to Headball 1, which will actually enable us to scale the game with paid UA in Tier 1 countries. So when you look at the current market conditions right now, there are millions of mobile games released on Google Play and App Store on a annual base. And then even though there are millions of games that are released every year, when you look at the games that make more than $5 million of annual revenue, it is only less than 2,000. And to be one of those companies, you need to scale your game. And to scale your game, you definitely need to have a better LTV so that you can scale your game and be one of those games that can generate more than $5 million of annual revenue. And within Headball 2, we actually approached the LTV increase in categories. So when you look at the components of increasing your LTV, there are three major components. Number one is that your core loop and metagame should be monetization and live ops friendly. The second thing is you need to have a very flexible live ops system. And the third thing is you need to be able to process a big data. There can definitely be like more components for higher LTV, but I wanted to highlight the top three major ones for Headball 2. So let's just kick the things off with the first component of higher LTV, which is monetization and live ops friendly core loop and metagame. So when you look at the Headball core loop, it is pretty simple. Actually, you play matches, you get some currencies and resources, you spend those resources to get like better characters and power-ups, and then you increase your ranks in the league to be the best player in the game. So the main thing about the core loop is actually your metagame, because in free-to-play, you actually make the most of the money through your metagame. So Therefore, you need to have a metagame and core loop that is scalable in the long term for both retention and monetization purposes. And also, it should be live ops friendly. So I'm going to be talking about like how we made our core loop and metagame both scalable in the long term and live ops friendly. So when you look at like how you acquire the characters in Headball 1, it was actually pretty straightforward. All characters have a price tag on top of them, and then you spend some currency to get those characters. So this kind of mechanic actually has pros and cons. So when you look at the pros, it is very easy for players to understand, and it could be a good reason why we actually had a pretty good day 1 and day 7 retention. But on the other hand, it was lacking monetization depth. And then most importantly, actually, in the very late game, it would create some vulnerabilities against economy inflations, especially in the late game. So we wanted to take a risk, and then we wanted to change this in Headball 2 by introducing the gacha mechanic into the game. So in Headball 2, how you acquire characters is based on gacha mechanic. And then there are definitely some pros and cons for this kind of mechanic. When you look at the pros, it definitely creates a higher monetization potential. But when you look at the cons, it might be potentially harder for target audience to understand this kind of mechanic because it's not as straightforward as simple character acquisition system. And also it could be a retention killer. So on top of acquiring the characters, we also wanted to add some character depth into the game. So we introduced character upgrade system with Headball 2. This was not something we had in Headball 1. So when you acquire those characters, actually, you can upgrade them and the attributes of those characters increase. And on top of that, as you upgrade those characters, you unlock some skill slots. And then to even further make your characters better, you can acquire some skill cards and then embed those skill cards into your skill slots. And on top of those, as you upgrade those characters, your characters actually look in a better way, which in other words, actually you can unlock new skins for your characters to have a more unique look and feel. So with the introduction of gacha mechanic and also the introduction of character upgrade, we actually managed to have a core loop and metagame and economy that is scalable in the long term for both retention and monetization purposes. And regarding making the game more live ops friendly, we actually added an illusion in the game. What I mean by illusion is that, so after the introduction of gacha mechanic, we made the lives of players actually more difficult because you're going to collect all these different character packages and then you collect those cards. And then after that, you can unlock those characters. So life became actually harder for players. But we actually mitigated this kind of like scenario for our players with the introduction of personalized limited time events and personalized bundles and offers. So yes, the life became harder for you, but because there are like live ops events, you can actually engage in the game even more, and then you can get those card packages or specific character cards for free as long as you engage within the game to upgrade and acquire those characters. And if you say that I don't have enough time, but I got money, then we also show you personalized bundles that gives shortcuts for players to receive the characters that they need. So we created this kind of illusion and we made the game live ops friendly in the long term to sustain a better retention and monetization within the game. That was the first component of the higher LTV. The second component is having a flexible live ops system. So when we say live ops at a very high level, what we mean is that actually it's the art of keeping the game fresh for all segments of players in a personalized way. And within Masomo and therefore within Headball 2, we have a pretty robust in-house built live ops infrastructure. By live ops, what I mean is actually it enables us to manage the game in three major verticals. Number one is the game config updates. Number two is the management of limited time in-game events. And finally, management of sales and bundles, and therefore store merchandising. We can do a lot more different stuff within our live ops infrastructure, but I only wanted to highlight the top three major things that we can fine tune remotely with our live ops infrastructure. But before we get into those details of these verticals, you have to make sure that actually your core pillars of your game is working smoothly for your live ops system to actually yield better results within your game. So when we look at the core pillars of Headball 2, the main foundation of the game is our actually matchmaking system. So we need to have a matchmaking system that creates exciting and competitive matches, that motivates the non-payers to become payers. And when you become a payer, you should not be regretting your purchase decision. So that's the foundation of the fundamental component of Headball 2. And on top of that, there's that game balancing. You need to balance your efforts and rewards in a very positive way. And then on top of that, you need to have your live ops offers that is placed on matchmaking and game balancing systems. If you don't have a proper game balancing and matchmaking system, whatever you do in your live ops activities, it's not going to yield the results that you are looking for. So after making sure that we have a pretty awesome matchmaking and game balancing system, then we can move on to actual live ops system. So the first vertical of live ops system, being able to update the game configs remotely, we can actually remotely change the prices within the game, change the progression and difficulty curves within the game remotely. We can fine tune our matchmaking system again remotely. And finally, we can change the rewards within the game remotely that actually enables us to have a much better live ops system and much better health within the game. So that was the first vertical, game config updates. The other vertical is management of limited time in-game events. We actually have a lot of different in-game events to help you progress in the game much faster as long as you engage within those limited time in-game events. Like we have, for example, during weekends, we have tournaments that we enable very occasionally. And then we have challenges based on real life matches. Like we have single player events to actually that you can challenge yourself to get actually to later in-game event steps to actually get better rewards within the game. The most important thing about those limited time events is that actually all those different players have different expectations from the game. So you cannot apply a live ops system within limited time game events that actually one size fits all strategy. Your different players have different expectations. For example, your new players have different expectations from the game, but very late game players have way more different expectations from the game. So what we do is actually we create those limited time in-game events for specific level buckets. So the event requirements and the rewards that a level 2 to 9 player see is different from a player on player level 50. So the difficulty and the rewards are fine-tuned for these different segments of players based on the player life cycle within the game. And on top of that, we personalize the rewards that we give away during those limited time in-game events to actually maximize the outcome of those events for both retention, engagement, and monetization. So that was the second vertical of our live ops infrastructure, management of limited time in-game events. And the third vertical is the sales and bundles stored merchandising. We, like I mentioned during the earlier in the presentation, if you don't have a lot of time to progress in the game, we actually showcase some shortcuts for those players who want to make purchases. And then we have different types of templates for players to actually purchase in-game items within the game. So this template, for example, offers like up to 4 different items that they can purchase. We call it as like mixed content bundle offers. And then this offer type actually showcases 3 different offers within the same UI, and we try to leverage the price anchoring within behavioral economics to actually make sure that the players are more incentivized to go for higher price point packages and therefore increase the average revenue per paying user. In other words, RPPU. And then we also have like exclusive accessory set bundle templates, so that if player purchases this template, if this bundle, they can actually both increase their win ratios because they have like better attribute characters, accessories, and on top of that, they can make themselves actually look more different on the pitch against the other players. And we also have different types of card packages that guarantees a specific character drop from this specific card package. And we also have a different template, which is called as like character upgrade offers. If you don't have a lot of time, if you want to have a shortcut again, within these offers, we give you all the things that you need to upgrade those characters. It creates a shortcut for players who have some money and then spend in the game. So again, just like our limited time in-game events, we also segment those limited time bundles and offers to various player segments. Like we show different offers based on the country that the players are playing in, their engagement level, lifetime spent, purchase frequency, and recency. We define the pricing based on these high-level conditions. And I can tell you that right now we are using maybe more than 20 or 30 different conditions to fine-tune the price point and the content of the bundle to maximize our revenue per player. So personalization is also applied in these limited time sales and offers. The content that you see in some of the offers are personalized based on some conditions. So that was the final vertical of our LiveOps infrastructure. And the final LTV component is the big data. So the big data is all about understanding the player patterns and taking proactive actions by looking at analyzing millions of players of data. So when you look at the last 5 years of how we approach big data processing, is that we kick the things off with very simple stuff. We get the raw data from our analysts. We put it in the pivot tables and then analyze the data. And then in 2017 to 2018, we used a system called Redash. It definitely gave us a better data visualization. It was easier for product managers to edit the reports. But when it comes to for analysts, it was really difficult for them to add new segments to existing reports. And finally, we are using a combination of Atmos and Tableau to process the data. We use Atmos for ad mediation platform and also tracking of high-level KPIs of the game. And we use Tableau for deep diving into the data, especially when it comes to game economy analysis, very detailed retention analysis, very detailed player and character progression analysis. We use Tableau. It is a little bit slow, I must say, but you can actually dice and slice the data very, very in detail so that actually we can look at how players are behaving in the game within thousands of maybe in different of segments. So the combination of Atmos and Tableau is where we are at when we try to analyze the millions of players of data. So long story short, to have a higher LTV, you need to have at least those 3 components within your game and your operation, day-to-day operation. So because we actually started to segment everything, we started to actually slice and dice the data and take proper actions for those like hundreds of different segments within the game. We also had to increase our team size. So in 2017, we had only 3 people working in our product team for Headball 2, But within 2021, we have around 23 team members who are product members actually, who are operating Headball 2 at a very global scale. So you will be asking the question of, okay, like from Headball 1 to Headball 2, you have actually scaled your team size. You have actually added a lot more detail in your product management operations. So what was the result? So after implementing and taking all those risks, I must say, we still continued our organic growth. So far, we had like more than 55 million total players. I think we are near like 70 million as of today, and we still are able to get the most of the installs from like organic installs. We managed to increase our daily active user base. We are somewhere at 1.5 million currently. And most importantly, actually, we increased the DAU ratio of tier 1 countries by 45%. We maintained our day 1 and day 7 retention metrics. But most importantly, which was our ultimate goal, we managed to increase our LTV by 5x. So this enabled us scale the game with paid UA in tier 1 countries. And now we are able to actually spend 7-digit user acquisition budgets on a monthly basis. So we managed to increase our LTV thanks to these major higher LTV components, which were having a core loop and metagame that are like monetization and live ops friendly. We have a very flexible live ops system, and then we have a very talented team of data scientists, and also the tools that enables us to manage and process millions of players of data. So that was my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I'll stop sharing my screen. So I see that there are some questions in the Q&A section. The first question is from Doruk. How do you make a non-payer turn into a payer? Can you give us some tips about that? So that's a very good question. So I must say that actually nowadays, converting non-payers to payers is an easier job. But the most difficult part is actually where you try to convert those players again into repeat payers. But based on your question, what we do is actually we design an onboarding system that actually will enable the players onboard in a very engaging way. And also on top of that, we try to showcase the offers to the players that are unmissable. So from a very player perspective, if you start playing the game, would you ever miss this kind of opportunity? So we try to actually make sure that from a player perspective, we showcase the offers that are unmissable and that are very useful for the players from their day 0 experience. I'm not talking about day 1 or day 2. I'm talking about day 0, because day 0 will be the day where you are going to be able to have the most number of payers for that specific cohort. So it's all about designing the player experience for both retention and monetization perspective. There's definitely a balance in between showcasing an unmissable offer and its potential impact into your cannibalization or your mid and long-term revenue. This is definitely an ongoing test. It's a never-ending process, I must say. But after you find a good, how can I say, good combination of finding the perfect offer, you actually apply it, try to make some like fine tunings on top of it, but don't change the major structure of the game when it comes to onboarding. I hope it answers your question. The other question is, what about the servers? Do they support the events and others without any bug or collapse, even though there are millions of players? Is it a good idea to make an online game as small developer teams? So that's also a great question from Jansu. So the first part of the question, we failed a lot very back in the days whenever we tried to push in-game events to the live servers. We had a lot of hiccups. We had a lot of challenges. We had a lot of like game server actually going down, but they happen. You cannot actually prevent those. You got to learn from your mistakes. But for the last, I would say 2 or 2.5 years, we're not having those kind of problems anymore because we have a super talented backend and client team, and then they actually learn from their mistakes and they actually push the limits of how this live ops infrastructure can be built in a very world-class standard. I must say that actually the system that we have in Masomo, I worked in many different like global game companies. The infrastructure we have right now is very unique and very robust, and it is actually a state-of-the-art infrastructure, I would say. We have, it's not a one-day built system. It is, we are still building it, we are still improving it, but I would say starting from Headball 1, we did actually a very I would say MVP version of it. From Headball 1 to Headball 2, it is a product of actually 4 years of hard work. The second component of the question, is it a good idea to make an online game as small developer teams? Definitely no. You should not make an online game if you are a small development team, because it's a very painful process. It requires many backend engineers. It requires a very good knowledge, a very good know-how. So it is actually pretty difficult for small developers to have online games. There are some third-party solutions in the market, but based on our experience, if you have an online game, you should have your own system to have a proper solution. And the other question is, do you think changes on IDFA will harm your personalized offers? Yes, it might have an impact, but IDFA is a different scenario, actually, because it is mainly creating a privacy protection for like personalized ads. What we do in here is actually we don't showcase ads. We only use like personalized in-game offers, and IDFAs actually are not impacted by that because we have the player IDs, and we use those player IDs to showcase offers within the game, not in like other platforms or like media channels. So IDFA were not very impacted by showcasing those personalized in-game offers or limited time in-game events. I think we are coming very close to our end of the session. We only have 1 minute. I don't know if you have like more questions, but I think it is what it is so far. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and thank you so much for asking questions. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, other channels. I'll be happy to give you some answers as much as I can. Thank you so much.